Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Celtic Crossing Whiskey Tasting. I am sitting here with Alan O'Donovan in Cantor, Cork, Ireland. And Alan, tell us about yourself first, and then maybe tell us a little bit about Flying Tumbler, the brand, how it all came into fruition.
Sure. So I've been involved in the whiskey game for about over 5-6 years now. I was originally doing whiskey tours and tastings with a bar called the Celtic Whiskey Bar down in Killarney, Kerry. Um, so we used to do a lot of kind of staff training and tours and stuff like that with tour groups coming through. Like Killarney is one of the most busiest tourist spots in all of Ireland. So that's kind of where I really branched into the whole whiskey side of things. Um, then after that, with COVID and stuff, obviously the bar closed down a little bit. So obviously the tours and things like that weren't really up and running, unfortunately. So I kind of looked into the more of a sales brand ambassador roles. So I did a few little bits here and there for like the Connacht Distillery, for Grace O'Malley whiskey, and now currently I am with Flying Tumbler whiskey. So I was lucky enough to fall in with these guys in early January as a brand ambassador, sales executive type of lead. And thankfully, as Ireland started kind of opening up again, I was able to branch out and do open up a couple of more accounts and stuff for the guys. And now, thankfully, with hotels and bars and pubs and restaurants starting to reopen, the opportunity is a lot more accessible now to spread our word, basically, because we are a relatively new little company. Like they've only been, I suppose the idea has been around for about 3 years with the guys, but they in terms of like getting the liquid and stuff out there, it's only been in the last 7-8 months that we've actually had kind of physical bottles. So we've a couple of more releases up our sleeves that we're hoping to launch pretty much by this time next month. We're going to have 2 more releases, and we also have our inaugural release, the Bird, that's out there in the ether at the moment. So we will have 3, and we've got a couple of more casks kind of set aside for, well, we'll see how well the first ones do, and then we'll either just blend more together and make something nice and kind of exclusive, or we'll do a bit more of our kind of original batch as well. We'll see how it goes, basically. So we've a couple of things up our sleeve.
Fantastic. So with regards to us, the tasting on the 17th, we'll start with the Tumbler. We'll then do a 21-year-old Dewar's, the double aged Dewar's. Then we'll finish with Yoki, Nika Yoki from Japan. And the selection process, so you know, I work with a fella called Tim Clavey. Tim was at James Fox's. So this whiskey would have been recommended to me by Tim when he was there. He's now at Mitchell & Sons. And he actually
Fox's was the first place to take us on board, actually, when we launched our first batch. The Fox's were the first store.
They're great at taking the newcomers, and I love that about them. So I have an account there, so I get basically a delivery for them periodically. And this was in a batch that came over, I'm going to say last November, December. So I've had a little while, but like I said, Tim would have been like the one that would pick the whiskeys that go in the box that get out to me, that we share with our guests at the pub. So really looking forward to the 17th. And with regards to your partners in the Tumbler, what part of the world are they flying back from, so to speak?
So I'm actually a blow-in. The rest of the team are actually a family. So it's 2 brothers, a sister-in-law, and a cousin. So they're all based, well, their home base, or their nest, if we're going off bird analogies, is in Carlow, where the Flying Tumbler name is originating from. So I actually have a bottle here. If you see on your bottle, you'll probably have some longitude and latitudes.
Yes, I do.
That's actually the coordinates for the family farm.
Fantastic.
So that's where they came from originally, and then they spread their wings, to go off another analogy. And one of the guys went over to Boston. So he's actually still based in Boston at the moment. So he's actually going to be doing our US market for us. Then we have London. So I suppose my boss he would have been based in London before coming back to Carlow. And his wife, Jen, was also in London as well.
That's Patrick, right?
That's Patrick. Patrick Walsh, yeah.
And
then we have, I can't remember his name. He's a cousin in Germany, anyway. So they're all over. And with Thomas being kind of based in Boston, having that little market, and if you're going off, I suppose, this kind of Irish diaspora and sort of thing like that, Boston's a great place to kind of get your foot in the door in terms of the Irish market and that side of things. So they're kind of ready to launch. We've shipped over a couple of pallets, or pre-ordering a couple of pallets, getting ready to ship over there once we are launching our new ones. So you will see it trickle down. Like Thomas is in talks with a good few distributors over there at the moment. I think they've signed up for 2. So it will be going, no, probably not going to hit the 50 states, but if there's ever a need for a tasting in Hawaii or something, I'll sign up for that one.
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. Or Memphis, we'll see how far it trickles down. But yeah, they're kind of scattered across the globe in a way. They had a little time in Australia and stuff as well. So
wow. So before we get into the whiskey, how about like opening this venture in the middle of a pandemic? What, August 20th, 2020, right? That's our launch date. The company started with this is their first brand, and my number on this is B1840.
Oh yeah, you've 200 bottles before me. I'm in the thousands. Yeah, I mean, it was a risk. Obviously, it's now I suppose for the most part, obviously your bars and restaurants and the whole kind of bar scene over here in Ireland just shut up shop for the bones of 15 months, more or less. Now, thankfully, which doesn't say a lot for our drinking habits, the liquor stores over here have seen record sales.
Same here. Times. Just we got shut down on March 19th. We reopened on June 2nd, and that was about 2 weeks after we were basically eligible to reopen. And it was all a very limited seating. We had very, very tight rules. Took a while to get used to the rules. Looking back now, it's almost like, oh, that's simple, right? Spacing, table spacing, seating spacing, wearing a mask, contact tracing. Now it's kind of second nature looking back over a year. So we watched our business slowly. June, July, August, September, not great. But then we saw a turn October, November, and a real turn December, January, and then February, a major pickup. Patrick's Day was surprisingly very, very good. We got to basically shut down a street next to our pub.
Oh, excellent.
And since then on the uptick, and now we've lifted all regulations. We can seat wherever we want. We still have to wear a mask as owners and staff. And we're back to about 75%, 80%. Certain restaurants, certain themed restaurants are actually back to
full capacity.
100, 110, 120% of what would have been the last great year, 2019. So, very different. I know yesterday was reopen day. I was listening to the radio. It sounded like a lot of fun, a nice sunny day in Ireland. Everyone's sort of enjoying outdoor dining and drinking and partying, sort of almost like an act. Of course, it was a bank holiday, right? But
it was, bank holiday weekend just finished. So I mean, it was great, and to see the whole industry that I've been a part of for the last good chunk of my professional career has just reopened again. With baby steps. Obviously, it's just outdoors, and you're only allowed 15, and you have a time limit if your tables are spaced a bit closer together. They've done away with the rule of having to eat with drink, though, which makes sense, because a €9 bucket of chicken wings wasn't exactly the cure for COVID, but apparently the government saw it as the rule. So it's just you can by all means just sit and have a pint without ordering food with it. So that's one of the big changes. And then we're going into indoor dining from next month. So like as this kind of develops, and as the kind of scene opens up again, I suppose new markets will open up for Flying Tumbler, because we've never seen kind of the hotel trade or like the cocktail bar trade or anything like that. And we're trying to get into like not only as like a sipping whiskey, but we think it makes a fantastic cocktail base and stuff like that as well. So we just haven't had that avenue yet, basically, in terms of there's been no place open to go in and do a couple of old fashions for some punters there yet. So now, thankfully, fingers crossed, we'll be getting there.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, take us into non-age statement. I'm going to pour myself a little. I know it's a little early here. You've got a better time in the day than me.
Ah, yeah,
We'll still
it's
enjoy
almost
it,
four
right?
here, so I'm gonna an aperitif. Yeah. So what this guy is was he was our inaugural release at the kind of like the end of last year. So this is our bird, quite limited in bottles, because he was just like a once off release. So this is I suppose you could see this is our flagship whiskey. We are going to be rejigging the formula a little bit and redesigning the bottle, and launching kind of a new version of him next month. So we're going to have like the neck of the bottle is going to be, well, it's going to be corked first of all rather than a screw cap, and
Gotcha.
it's going to be a little bit of a longer neck by about an inch or so, and it's actually just for, as the bars open up again, it's for bartenders, because
You gotta grab
when
it.
you guys are like bars
You gotta
for
grab
people
it,
deep
yeah.
and you have to grab a
I
bottle.
nearly dropped it on the way over here coming across the courtyard. But question for you, tell us a little bit about the bird.
So, like you were saying, non-age statement.
Yep.
It's roughly about 5.5, 6 years old. Now we're kind of full disclosure about transparency and stuff like that. So we are not a distillery. We're a blending operation based out of a brewery in Carlow called the Carlow Brewing Company, where you have O'Hara's would be their main range of beers. So we're just renting a little blending spot for them, or from them, I should say. So what we're going to do, we're sourcing some great quality liquids from a couple of distilleries around Ireland. In this case, it's a distillery up north called Great Northern Distillery, set up by John Teeling, the guy that set up Cooley and kind of revived the entire Irish whiskey industry back in the late 80s and 87. So he kind of pretty much put us back on the map, for want of a better word. And then his two sons, Jack and Stephen, opened up the Teeling Distillery. If any of you guys have ever been in Dublin, some great expressions coming out there, with an American master distiller, Alex Chasko. I think he's from Colorado, I want to say. So some amazing releases. And then their dad opened up the Great Northern Distillery, and they've been pretty much contract distilling for a lot of kind of startup distilleries or blending operations and stuff around the country. So they have their finger in many pies. And to be fair, like the liquid that's coming out there, I mean, this guy is 5.5 years old, and the flavor is phenomenal for a relatively young whiskey. I mean, it does, like on the nose, it tastes quite young, or it smells quite young, and on the palate it is a little lively. And it is bottled at 86 proof as well, or 43 ABV. So you would get a little, like, you're drinking when you're drinking it, So we age it in bourbon barrels from Tennessee, actually. So we got a couple of Jack Daniel's stamp barrels on it, and a couple of Woodford Reserve barrels as well in our storehouse. And then we also have a little finish of Oloroso sherry from Spain, just to give it kind of round it out the end a little bit. But the bourbon influence is very, very prominent. Like for me, like I'm a massive bourbon fan. If you can kind of see behind me, like this is my.
I see mixtures there
at home. Like it's mostly Texan at the moment. But it's
you've heard of Balcones, right?
Yeah, I got
Good
3
stuff.
bottles from Balcony, so it's fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we've had a nice time with them. Yeah. So
some great releases from the guys. But it's kind of like for me getting into like American malts or American bourbons, like this is a great kind of corn whiskey. Like it is mostly corn based, with a little bit of barley. So if any of you guys ever had like mellow corn, I know it's kind of almost mythical status
now that you say it, it does smell a little like a bourbon, right? Like a
very, very sweet. Like you get a lot of this kind of vanilla, kind of custard, creamy notes on the nose. And when you taste it, it is a corn whiskey for in most sense of the word. It has a beautiful kind of delicate little sweetness with a little bit of kind of like a citrusy kind of kick off it. Like you get a bit of lemons, a bit of lime zestiness coming through in it. Again, it's bottled at 86 proof, so you get a little.
We always trying to find pathway whiskies, right? Path a Scotch drinker over to bourbon, path an Irish drinker to Scotch. There's some great whiskeys that provide that. So this is a great pathway for your like diehard bourbon Tennessee whiskey drinker. Here, why don't you try an Irish? This is a great pathway whiskey for people like that, right?
Massively so. It's a great segue. It's like a gateway to Irish or vice versa. You know, I mean, this would be my kind of conversion unit. And the same, like for example, if you were to take like a diehard Isla, you know, Lafroig, Lagavulin drinker, there's a fantastic Irish whiskey called Connemara. It's one of the few peated whiskies over here. And it's just a wonderful segue into Irish, and it's light and it's floral and has that little smokiness. Whereas this, it has all those kind of little elements, I suppose.
Nice pepper.
Like that's the thing. It has a little spice. Like if you were to take a 5.5-year-old bourbon as opposed to a 5.5-year-old us, like that peppery spice isn't quite there in a bourbon because, well, you guys have the wonderful weather in Tennessee and Kentucky and stuff like that, you know, and like the wood just saps all that flavor into it. Whereas for us, for anyone being to Ireland knows that sun doesn't really come out a whole lot, but we don't get a lot of that intense flavor that you get in the first few years as you would compared to a bourbon. You tend to leave it a little bit long. Once you start hitting double digits over here, you get a little bit more of an oomph from that kind of concentration from the barrel. Whereas if you were to take a 5 or even a 3-year-old bourbon, I mean, I've a 9-month-old bourbon on my shelf back here, and like the flavor is just such a concentration from the heat of well, actually that guy's from Philadelphia, my 9-month-old, so I'm not sure how the weather is in Philly, but like and on the same instance, so we're lucky because I mean, if you're to take Kentucky or Tennessee, like that flavor is great in one instance, but the heat is also sucking up all the juice too. So you guys are losing about 11-12% a year to the Angel share. We lose about 1.5, you know, so we have a lot more to play around with. So we have a couple more casks of this guy sitting in our warehouse at the moment. We're just not sure how we're going to release him. So we may finish him in a particular cask, or we may blend him and make more birds. We'll have to see.
I'm getting some figs now that on the palate, and it's very peppery. It's got a nice, for a whiskey that got spoken of to having a shorter finish. It's actually decent first thing in the morning.
I mean, it's a breakfast of champions, you know. Instead of corn flakes, just have corn whiskey, you know. It's and the thing is, it is really light. You know, it's not too invasive. It's actually a great kind of, I suppose, like an aperitif. It's a before dinner whiskey. It's a great great one on the rocks. It may be sacrilegious to some, but I love drinking whiskey on the rocks. It makes a great, and it's quite fun actually. With our new bird release, there's a little bit older spirit in it, and it's amazing because I come from kind of a cocktail background as well. But if you were to take the two birds, as in the one that we're having now, as opposed to our new one, the new bird is great as like a standalone base alcohol in a cocktail, like if you're making an old fashioned or a sour or something like that. Whereas this one really, really benefits from adding more alcohol. So like a Boulevardier, for instance, would be one of my favorite, you know, so get some good vermouth and Carpano and some bird. And it really helps.
Have you over and you could show us your
give me a date.
Have you over to visit Elvis, go see Graceland, and and tell us you can actually karaoke your favorite Elvis song.
Go.
Huh?
Maybe a few more of these. I'll get the karaoke machine out.
And just backing up one more time, the actual bird itself, the flying tumbler bird that this is named after, renowned for what?
For finding its way home, which is kind of why the guys, it appealed to the guys in terms of like them being all over the world. Now they're kind of coming back to Carlow and starting families.
Well, it's a bird that can fly for days at a time, right?
Yeah, it can sleep, eat, and mate in midair. So depending on a bird of many talents.
Very
So,
talented, yes.
you know,
Very
I'm
more talented than
definitely
me.
not that talented. I
Ah.
have to take a rest every now and then. But yeah, I mean, and it's, I suppose like even the design of him, it's quite quirky. You know, I mean, you know, a lot of the bottlers nowadays go for like, I suppose, more old school bottling, or they kind of have a little nod back to older bottles or older bottlers or bonders. And like a lot of our new Irish whiskey labels look like old Irish whiskey adverts in like you
Yeah.
see in the bars and stuff like that. Whereas this one, it's very, very simple. Like you're not, you know, being bombarded with info or numbers or something on a label. Like it's just a name, the coordinates, and a funky little pigeon on the label. So it is quite a quirky little bottle at the same time. And we're going the same for, like I was saying, we're relaunching him next month. We're also bringing out a 12-year-old blend as well, and that's called the Tippler, which is another bird pigeon as well at the same time. And then I think we've kind of exhausted all whiskey pigeon related connections though after that. So flying tumblers and tipplers, you know, it's like if you Google flying tumbler, it's if you go on the second page of Google, you got helicopter whiskey glasses, so flying tumblers. So it's quite a bespoke
When is the
name
Tippler
itself.
going to hit?
Yeah.
When do you see the Tippler coming on the market?
So we have most of it's actually we're lucky enough that it's all been pre-allocated. So that was kind of my main gig really when I joined the guys to push our new premium blend out there. So it's only a single cask. So we only had about 40 cases of it. So about 250 bottles is all we actually have of this release. So he's coming out at the start of July as well. But
I'll
now
get my name down for one of those.
yeah, we've there will be. I think we got a bit of distribution over in Boston as well, so it would be available online anyway. Definitely,
Fantastic.
because we will have like we've held a few back. We distributed most of them for like independent off licenses or liquor stores here in Ireland, but there will be obviously some held back for online stores and things because you know
Yeah.
for you know the international customers.
What's the give me your 3-year outlook for Irish whiskey in general and for the bird?
Well, we're going hopefully launching another one. We'll see how this bird goes in terms of customers, and then we'll play around with what's left in our casks, basically in our bonded warehouse. So that will definitely be another, and as well as that, a more international market. Like we actually haven't gone into the UK yet with Brexit and everything, but at the end of July now, we got a couple of meetings in Northern Ireland, so we're hoping to kind of branch in that way and across. So we'll have a little bit more of a wider spread across Europe as well in the next couple of years too. And then sourcing some more quality spirits from a few new distilleries, and hopefully we haven't really gone a whole lot ahead with it, but there is this beautiful old malting mill house in the same town as where we are currently at. Like it stopped production in like the 60s or 70s or something.
In Carlo?
But it used to malt.
In Carlo?
In Carlo, yeah. So it used to be a malting site for a lot of breweries and distilleries in the area back like throughout the early 1900s and late 1800s. So the site is actually owned by the same guy that owns the brewery where we're currently residing. So there is a little talks of us having an on-site blending operation there with a little visitor center and a blend your own whiskey kind of workshop and stuff like that. So that's a couple of years down the line. We'll have to see what we do with that and make it more of a, like, besides just a good drink, have a more of a, like a tourist kind of operation as well. So that'll be a pretty cool little project in the next few years. And I mean, like the whiskey industry, it's not slowing down here. Like I've been in the gig about 6 years now, and I've seen distilleries open and open and open. Like Killarney, where I used to work, when I started in Killarney in 2016, had no distilleries. Now there's plans for 5. You know, it's ridiculous.
Is one of those Liberator Maurice O'Connell?
Yes, yeah. Sir Morris is out there. He's about a 10-minute drive from where I was. Lovely, a pure gentleman.
Oh yes, yes. We had a nice visit with him. We didn't do it. We just did a call, an interview, and we done Echelanville in the north. We did Glendalough. We did West Cork Distilleries. We did Dingle. We did. I mean, we've just we did a Teeling Brabazon edition.
Oh, excellent!
We
Yeah,
did
the
that
Brabazon
with the
series is
oh,
phenomenal.
fabulous.
Some great.
Yeah. So we've tried to stay away from sort of the mainstream and branch out into. We did Pierce Lyons. I'd like to do Connacht with their newer stuff coming, and there's so many. There's just so many now. I think what are we at? Open distilleries, probably what? Broken through 30.
36, I think, at the top of my head, with about another 15 planned.